And good afternoon, or good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Murphy. 15 more things you can and probably should automate, part 3. This seems to be a very popular series, so we keep adding in more and more. Pardon me. So this content may contain forward-looking statements regarding future product plans and development efforts, blah, blah, blah. What that basically means is if we talk about roadmap, maybe something that's coming in automation or what have you, you cannot take that as a promise to deliver, only because product plans and priorities do change. Who am I? My name is Jason Murphy. I'm one of the head nerds here, primarily for N-Central. I've worked at Enable previously, and then I left to go work for a behemoth MSP, a top 20, a CRN top 20 MSP, a really, really big MSP here in Ottawa, Canada. And Vancouver as well. I won't leave that out. I was the technology and security leader. I was in sales. I was the program manager. I did a whole bunch of stuff at this MSP over the 3.5 years that I was there. And then I came back and, well, I went to go work for another MSP for about a year as the director of managed services. And then I came back, but all in all, I've been focused on mostly N-Central and automation. And regardless of whether you're using N-Central or our N-Site product, all of what I'm going to show you is mostly the same, okay? Let's get started. Now, this boot camp usually is around anywhere from 45 minutes to, I would say, 1 hour and 10. It really depends on the questions and the show and tell and everything else. So, little agenda today. We're going to do an introduction. We're going to do use cases. We're going to do a Q&A. All right, so of course, we talk about end of life. One of the most, I would say, especially in 2023, one of the more common themes I get asked of all of the time is like, why can't N-Central work with this older end of life version of Windows, 2008, vanilla 2008, or 2008 R2, or 2012, or 2012 R2. Okay, so based on that, we have created a Windows EOL version, end of life, okay? And as you can see here by the output, it's grabbing some really awesome parameters, okay? So name and version of the OS. So we've got the full name and the actual version, the release date, the end of support of the current OS, days left before end of support, end of life date of current version, days left of end of life, okay? So obviously you can see that both of those match. And then there's obviously a support link for more information. Now, let's hop into that one. And I need to find my scripts because I have them all right here, ready to go. And I'm going to pull up Automation Manager. And we're just going to do a quick review. Most of what you're going to see today is in PowerShell. There are a few that are native to Automation Manager. Okay. Bear with me for a sec here, just opening, perfect. I'll open up that policy right here. And I put it on my OneDrive. So let me just go down here. And I will show you on the cookbook. I don't know the exact details as to why, but there is one for N-Site and one for N-Central. I'll just open up the N-Central one here. And we'll do a quick review. And let's pull over Automation Manager. And as you can see, no input parameters, no global variables, okay? Here is the script, okay? I'm wearing brand new glasses as of 10 o'clock this morning, and they're like adaptive lenses, or I forget the term for them, but I gotta position my head a certain way to actually be able to read now, which I'm not used to, so bear with me here. I'll tilt my head a little bit. So obviously we're getting from get sim instance Win32 operating system, the version. Now we're going to define the API endpoint URL, okay? So we're going to carry forward some information. Then we're going to invoke REST method, okay? And then what we're going to do is start to get all of these really awesome parameters, okay? So here they all are. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire PowerShell except to outline that all of this is as an output. So two things. You can also create monitoring based on this, like informational type monitoring, not something you could typically fail or threshold on, except for maybe the numeric values. Or you can even store this information into as a custom property as well. There might be a couple of those outputs that you actually want to store and use. And if I come right here, so bear with me for a sec. So give me a sec here. Let me just get the right pixel. Oh my gosh, I love this. All right, so as you can see, I'm running Windows 11. So you can see all of the stuff here. Just like we outlined before, OS expiry date, end of life days, those kinds of things. So there's a lot of great information in this particular AMP to be able to make sure that you understand what is end of life and coming. Okay, so this one will work very nicely for you. Let's just minimize that and move on to number 2. Another good one is battery health monitoring. Of course, everybody has a fleet of laptops, and sometimes it's good to know, what is going on with it. So as you can see here, you've got the battery serial number. For Dell, it's just Dell. Calculated battery capacity left at 94%. The design capacity in milliwatt hours. Again, you will see this decrease over time. So you can see the delta between the two. The full capacity in milliwatt hours, the number of batteries found on the system, and details about the all batteries found, the Dell capacity, 94, design capacity, 68,005, and then a full charge, right? So you will see even at full charge that is not hitting that design capacity. Now, let me just pull this one up really quick. And I'll open up my automation manager. Where'd you go? There it is. All right, so let's open up that. I'll say no. Okay, there is one for Nsight and N-Central and RMM, or Nsight, I should say, my bad. Let's open up this one. And again, like before, no inputs, no global variables. It is all PowerShell. Now, this is a hefty script, right? And again, because I can't read everything on my screen, I will go through at least the outputs with you. So again, what we're able to do is output the battery ID, capacity, and these are all numeric values, and then the out ST, whatever that means. The good news is, let's go into N-Central and upload it and apply it, because I actually have a laptop, my own, in N-Central. So let's pull that up. And what I'll do here is I will go into configure or administration. I want to go into service management, custom services, service, automation manager policy. Now I'm pretty sure it's already in N-Central. So let's go battery. There we go. Now, when it comes to scheduling, err on the side of how quickly you need something, right? So I would recommend when it comes to pulling information to do it based on an hour to 4, because you want something that is fairly real time. But again, the difference between what is an hour and 4 hours is going to be fairly negligible, right? So for something like this, I probably would not set it in 10-minute increments to run on their endpoint. I might do something custom and run it every 4 hours or something to that effect, okay? Now, that being said, the thresholds. And again, when you come in and modify these thresholds, obviously you can threshold them based on the numeric values that are coming in terms of milliwatt hours, number of batteries found in the system. Typically, it's going to be 1. right? And then what we're going to do here is I'm going to come into, because it's already in Central, I can come into my laptop. Let me just find it. That's because my username isn't JM. Here we go. There it is. So let's go into here, monitoring, and I don't have it, which is good. Add. Battery monitoring, I'll put a 1 beside it. And as you can see, it will, I would say within the next 5 minutes, start pulling in that information. This little hourglass is telling me, hey, wait up, I need to return some data, right? So it's going to run and pull in that information within the next 5 minutes. Okay, so this is a really good way to monitor the batteries on your laptop to get the desired information that you need to be able to understand that they're healthy and working the way you intend. And if they're not, obviously you can then upsell them on a battery if you needed to, right? Or maybe even a new laptop. 1 second here. Okay, let's go into, let's do one more refresh. Ooh, we got a problem. All right, so let's look into it. Okay, so give me the name, Dell, the calculated battery capacity left. Now, my laptop has been on since, I would say 10 o'clock this morning when I got back from my eye appointment. So I would say this is probably average, right? The design capacity in milliwatt hours is in a warning, okay? Full capacity, number of batteries found, and then with this one, you'll never get a proper threshold. So what I would probably do is come down and customize this as to no threshold and reverse them like this. And then I'll save that. And then I'll have, a green here in just a little bit. Now, again, I would personally use something like this as informational monitoring. I probably wouldn't alert, right? Unless I had a huge, like if I was working on that really big MSP and I had, say, 8 to 10,000 workstations and laptops, and a good 50% of those were laptops, I may come in and want to modify some of the thresholds in here to kind of give me more in-depth, tell me where my problems are kind of thing. But for the most part, if you're running 1,000 or 2,000 devices, you probably just want, some information to understand and run a report or pull some of this information in as a custom property. Okay, so there's that one. Let's go into number 3. Okay, minimize this. Okay, so let's go back. I don't know why that clicked on its own. Sometimes the automations are on and they just kind of kick in. Okay, let's go back. Come on, there we go. Let's go here, full screen, 1 click. There we go. Okay, so repair Microsoft Office. And I think there is a really good use case around this. Let me just go back to my presenter view so I can see my notes. So this AMP allows for running a repair on Office if accepted by the user. Now, you can choose to run a quick repair or online repair by using the switch quick or online. So both of those options are in the AMP, which we'll review here in a moment. And it will show the following: walk through. Okay, so what we're going to do is walk through this, and what I will not do is actually run this on my machine. IT gets a little cranky when I start running and breaking. I have done it. I've broken my machine by testing automation on my production machine. It doesn't happen often, maybe once or twice a year, but they still don't like it when I have plenty of VMs to do this stuff on. So if I can encourage all of you, If you're going to be running automation and testing some of this, use a lab device of some sort, all right? Let's go to the automation manager and find it. Okay, so we'll come back here. We'll open this up. Okay, let's look through this entirely, all right? So you can see that there is a repair selector. Now, again, that's that online method. Okay, so we're gonna do a prompt. Do you want to repair Office? And then if that prompt click result equals yes, then what we're going to do is use that value quick or online, one of those two. Quick is, I would say, fine. Else, so if they answer, okay, so let's go back. So if they answer yes, we're going to use the quick or the online version. Then what we're going to do is run a PowerShell script to repair Office, as you can see here, okay? And then it's going to output. Okay, so here's the output result. And then what we're going to do is prompt, Office Quick Repair has finished running. You may use Office again, and then it'll stay up for 5 minutes if you wanted to. They can click OK or cancel. What we're going to do is take that response and use that within the PowerShell. Else, what is going to happen is if that repair selector string equals online, then what we're going to do is run the same command. Prompt, again, Office Online Repair. You may use Office again for 5 minutes. And then we're going to take that global variable result and carry that into the PowerShell. And then else, we're going to take this global variable assignment, user aborted repair. So what we're trying to do is capture this, and again, we can stop the policy based on it. Okay, so it's a way to end the policy based on the customer response. Okay, so it's a really handy repair tool that you can use to, fix Microsoft Office. Now, which leads me to, bear with me, Microsoft Office version monitoring. Now, the two aren't related, but we do have a theme here. Okay, so I want to talk to you about this particular use case because my colleague Paul Kelly was telling me yesterday about why this got created. Well, I had a customer who basically had discovered that his Microsoft Office for his customers were something like 46 versions behind. So you'll see the very last one here, number of versions behind. It said 46. And Paul's like, well, let's check into it, let's look. And in fact, they verified that it was actually 46 versions behind. So what they did was run that repair to then upgrade it and repair it and fix it and get it to the latest version. So you could even use the previous automation to do some self-healing on that. But this is a really good one because this will tell you the full version of Office found on your computer. Update the channel active on the computer to MEC. Here's the partial version code, as you can see here. The latest Office version available, so we'll tell you what is available and then give you the number of versions behind, okay? I wasn't looking at the questions pane, and I apologize, Roderick. I was talking about my glasses and not being able to see. He did say, as someone who uses progressive lenses, that's what these are. I said adaptive. That's like adaptive is when they kind of change from sunglasses to normal glasses, but these are progressive lenses. I suggest you get a pair of inexpensive computer glasses, which is funny because those are right beside these are just cheap magnifier glasses. Like I go through a pair probably, once every 2 or 3 weeks based on either breaking them or losing them or what have you. But I do have now an $800 pair of progressive lenses, so I want to try to use them as much as possible. I will probably do exactly what you mentioned at some point, because I hate being able to swivel my head and move things all over the place. Now, Microsoft Office update. Okay, so obviously being able to do that. Let me come back here. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure I'm on track. And I'm not, so let's go back here. There we go. You're up to date. The latest version of Microsoft 365 and Office are installed on your computer. So you can see that between the theme here, when you go to monitoring the version of Microsoft Office, you can also now self-heal on that and also even repair it. All right, so say it's not working, repair it. So let's just look at that one really quick. Okay, bear with me here. Open, no. Update. Okay, so again, full PowerShell script. No inputs, no global variables. And all we're going to do is to do a Microsoft update is we're going to start process from, where is the executable? Let's go back. It is called Office CT or C2RC client.exe. And we're going to use a command line argument that is going to update user display level false and force apps to shut down equals true. Now, I would recommend testing some of this and even Googling to make sure it's going to do the recommended behavior that you want, because we're not giving you much flexibility in terms of the command line argument. There might be other switches that you want to include. Maybe you don't have to force shut down or force the app to close or what have you. I'm sure you probably do when it's Office, but and then we're going to get the version, get item property equals path from HKLM, software, Microsoft Office, click to run, configuration. We're going to pipe that. Oop, 1 second back. Pipe, select object. We're going to expand that property on the version to report. Then, no outputs. Oh, there is an output. Sorry, my bad. Based on the version. Okay, so again, a really good way to update Microsoft. And now I'm not going to run this on my computer either, because again, I've already broken Microsoft Office and logging tickets and all that other stuff, not always a fun process. So as I'm sure you understand, because you're in the same business as I am. So it's one of those things where check it out, test it on your machine or your lab, okay? Now, let's talk about this. Come on, click. There we go. The AV status, okay? So again, as you know, if you've been an Enable partner for a while, we have the ability to monitor, I think we're at 30 third-party AV products outside of Bitdefender and or SentinelOne, which have their own monitoring. It's dedicated monitoring for our products. But there are a lot of other products out there, right? So something like Enable EDR. So you can even monitor that in N-central if you wanted to. So it'll check to see if virus scanning is enabled. Is the product up to date? It will tell you the version number and the last time this particular script has been ran. Okay. Bear with me for a sec. I just need to check one thing in my folder over to my other screen. Bear with me. Okay, so let me just pull that up. There we go. We'll open. Yes, I know what I wanted to do. We want to go to here. success.n-able.com, cookbooks, and then we're going to look for AV status. So you now have AV status monitoring, okay? And I believe the latest version is 2.49. So we have made updates to this. Now, I'm going to download it really, really quick because I want to kind of show you a little bit about this. Okay, so if the version history is what I wanted. There we go. So people ask me all the time, I want you to be able to monitor Sophos. I want to be able to monitor, okay, so check this, because this script has been kicking around for, I would say probably close to a decade. That is why it's still in a VBS. But now you can see where we've updated Trend Micro Worry-Free Business Security Agent. Same, we fixed the detection on access scanning for semantic endpoint. We've added improved detection for CrowdStrike. So we are continuing to improve this over time, okay? Hopefully I just answered your question, Martin. Otherwise, I would say it's all right here. You may have to do a little Control F on some of this, but you can see that we do FireEye, right? You have to do Control, okay, you saw it, okay, good. But in here, you should be able to do it. Now, I know, Martin, you use, I think it's called Cylance. So I know there's some monitoring out there for that product itself, but I'm sure even the AB status monitor will do exactly what you need to. You wouldn't be surprised that this may perform better. There have been some code optimizations along with this. So if you're using an older version, okay, I would tell you to maybe look at updating. So you're using 2.19 shows added support. Okay, so if you look through the versions and we haven't touched Cylance from 2.19 to 2.49, then maybe just leave as is, okay? Like they say, if it's not broke. So there's that, right? So, and I do recommend looking at that one. One thing I'd want to show you as a best practice is that when you do have monitoring, if I go to service management, custom services, add service, let's go, let me just make sure I haven't already. That's a zip. We don't want that. 1 second here. Let me just put that on my desktop. Pardon me. Okay. Copy. There we go. I'll extract here. Okay. Now I can do this. I can close this. I can browse. And let's go into here. AV status is at the bottom. And then here's the AV status VBS. Import. Of course, it's not an AMP, and I chose AMP. So if I go into add service, what am I doing here? I want to run this as monitoring. So what I actually want to do, I'm having a moment here, is I want to be able to add this particular script and use it as monitoring, right? Now, one thing I would recommend is when you go to, once it's in the repository and it's used as a script, there is a default monitor already in N-Central. So if I go to any device, well, any Windows-based device, work with me. Okay, so we'll go back to my laptop. Monitoring. Now, I'm doing this at a device level, but I will show you from a service template level as well. So if you go in and look for AV status, put a 1 there, apply. Just adding in the monitoring is not enough. I have to be able to script the AV status 2.19 or 4.9 or whatever version you're using Intune Central. So that's where you use typically you want to do a scheduled task. So I just want to kind of quickly show you the workflow. Doing the monitoring is just not enough. If I was to refresh this, it's going to come back with, well, of course, I'm already running it against my device, but you get what I mean. I've already done this 100 times. So if you're not doing that, what I want to tell you is you want to come into schedule task. You want to create a profile, add, we'll call this AV status script. And what I do, script, S-C-R-I-P-T, there we go. And I always put the date, right? So I'll call this, June 2023, because a year from now, you're going to realize, oh, wow, it's now June 2025, and you're still using an older version, and you're going to be bringing on newer versions of AVs and everything else. So you may want to also remind yourself that there's an earlier version. So I'll put AV. Now, again, here's my older one. That's from 2022. But when all I want to do is schedule that on a recurring basis. Now with AV, I want that to be fairly real time. So I would say once an hour, probably as the max. But I'll leave it to you to kind of figure that part out. Some people want this as up as 30 minutes. Okay. Naoki, could the AV status script be modified to uninstall AVs? If, for example, I have a large number of devices to onboard that have unwanted AV installed on them. Naoki, I will tell you, uninstalling AV is more of an art than a science. No two AVs kind of work the same way. Now, there might be some useful information in the VBS to kind of get you on track, because if you can typically install something, it may also give you some steps to uninstall. But in my experience, because there's that executable or the MSI package for the AV is so verbose, it's going in all areas of the operating system. Oh, hey, Michael. Awesome. I got my friend Michael on the call today. Anyways, it's one of those things where I probably wouldn't be able to use this script, this VBS script, to uninstall. Now, one thing I used to do a lot of was use AV cleaners. You can typically Google them and find some either script or find something on GitHub to remove it. But my friend Michael says AV versions can cause other processes on uninstall as well. So there's things you have to be mindful of. These are very, very important and also sometimes delicate applications that we're installing. Okay, so bear with me for 1 second here. All right, cool. So that's the AV status script. Now, once it's scripted, you have it recurring on all of your workstations and laptops every single day, every hour. Then what you're going to do is then come into your service templates, so recurring, monitoring, service templates, and then you're going to add in your AV status monitoring as a template itself. Or what you can also do is come into the bundles of monitoring for workstations, laptops, for servers, and simply come in and edit. So this is where you would go in and add AV. Where are you, AV status? And I might add that directly into what I call core templates. Core templates are the templates that get assigned to every workstation, every laptop, every server, every VMware, every network device, whatever. So these are core templates is what I call them. Now, what a lot of people like to do is have more flexibility. So they don't add them into a lot of our default monitoring. You can also just create a brand new template and add in that AV status monitoring here, all on its own. And there's benefits to doing this because it scales a lot better. It applies much faster. When I start applying a reapplying a workstation template, this could hit 5,000, even sometimes 10,000 workstations. So it's one of those things where it will look through every single one and have to compare and adjust in the database or whatever. So it's a bit of a heavier lift. So it might be one thing to simply just add the AV status as its own service template as a best practice. Okay, let's move on. All right, so the reason why I bring up the AV status though, it is the single most, for all of our customs, let me just start over. For all of our custom monitoring, for all of our custom service, this is the one that is most highly requested and talked about, right? And downloaded, okay? So again, check out to see if you want to either use it and upload it. All right. Okay, so this is how to create a GPO/Intune policy in Automation Manager. Much of what happens in the registry can also be controlled through group policy. That is the native mechanism to be able to manage the endpoint via a domain controller using group policy. All of those controls are really kind of exposed in that registry, right? So what we've done is created a way for you to mimic a lot of the same behavior in the GPO within a script. Okay, so back in my sales engineering days, I'd often get asked if you could replace GPOs within Central or Insight, and effectively you can. Is it true management? No. I mean, Microsoft has some versatility in terms of a domain controller with group policy management built into it. It's a central manager, but an RMM could effectively do much of the same thing, right? So you can effectively use commandlets in PowerShell or Automation Manager to do this. Now, there is a Excel spreadsheet I do want to show you. I did try opening this up earlier and I couldn't. So let me just see if I can get it to work today. Where are you here? GPO. Of course, it's empty. Let me go to, one second here, bear with me. I'm just gonna pull this over because some of this is super secret. Bear with me. Okay, part 3. And right click and open. And this is the same error I was getting before. The source and destination files are the same. Well, okay. Cannot open the file because the path is more than 259 characters. So if anybody is interested in seeing this, because this isn't your fault, it's mine, please send me an email. It's letter J, MURPHY @n-able.com. I know there's a copy of this somewhere that does work, but for whatever reason, I can't open it today, only because the file path is just too long. So I'm sorry, I'll find it, I'll fix it, and I'll get it to you. Okay, so I'll put my email into the chat. Just send me a quick email afterwards at n-able. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'm just going to send this to everybody. And if you don't want it, ignore it. If you do, open it up and you can use it. So let me just do some fixes and I'll get it to you a little bit after this call. I got a couple calls right after this, and then I'll make sure you get your hands on it, okay? Traceroute testing. Now, if you've ever used NetPath in N-Central, think of it like this. Let's go into it. Why am I going to talk about it? Well, I've actually got N-Central in front of me. So let's do that. So if I come into all device view, I'll click on NetPath. And then as you can see, I've got some basic paths here set up. So I've got a net path that I have set up from a source to a destination as a visual representation of what a packet does from, this particular probe device. And then it starts hitting a switch, and then it starts hitting the firewall, and then it starts hitting the ISP, And there's load balancing, right? It might go this way or it might go this way. And then it'll hit this particular, I'd have to Google what AS 8075 is, but I'm sure it's, some backbone of the internet. So as you can see, let me just, can I move this down? No, I want to do this the other way. Bear with me. There we go, just like that. And then we're getting to the various destination IPs of the Microsoft Cloud, effectively, is what that is. So this is a visual representation of Traceroute. Now, it's kind of like Traceroute on steroids, because often as you traverse the internet, you will see, like if you've ever done Traceroute, certain things get masked and they're effectively blocked, so you don't get to see it. Well, what we have done is the same thing from a text-based point of view. So I'm just going to pull this up. I'll click open. And go into Traceroute Testing. Okay, and again, PowerShell script. This is something that my colleague Marc-Andre wrote. So again, we can look at something like google.com. In this particular case, I'm going to edit. And instead of Google, I'm just going to use something like enable.com. And then the net address, and we'll go through the PowerShell and do all the cool stuff. Now, if you are familiar with PowerShell, I would recommend taking a look. Otherwise, I'm going to click this because this will take a little bit. It is a bit of a hefty PowerShell. So it'll go through and execute the PowerShell, but it does take roughly about 45 seconds to a minute to complete. But maybe something that you want to use on your customer endpoints, right? Maybe they have a particular web application, QuickBooks Online or something, right? So you want to maybe record some of this and even log for it, right? So you can store, these trace routes, maybe on their endpoint to C:temp or what have you, where it will store it so that you have it for troubleshooting later on. Okay, so I'm going to pull this over because I know how long this takes. I have even seen it take up to a minute. Or 2 minutes. So I'll let you know. I'll pull it back over once it's complete. Let's move on to okay, there it is. No, it's done. Okay, so go back. And as you can see here, this Traceroute monitor does not exist, but it does give you some information about what it is doing. And again, you can use this as effectively as monitoring or a way to log information as well. Okay, so a good way to be able to use this for traceroute purposes. Is the computer in safe mode? Now, when Mark built part of this boot camp along with Paul Kelly, I was like, customer's going to know the device is in safe mode. But what Mark came back to me and said is when he was visiting a customer, he worked with a customer who didn't know that their server was in safe mode after a reboot. Okay, so this might seem like a very simple use case, but it might be something that you may need later on. Okay, especially if you have a bad patch. It happens, right? And we've all experienced safe mode because of a bad patch from Microsoft. So it's one of those things where you may want to rely on something like this, especially if a bad patch comes out. It's patch August, there's a bad patch, all of your devices are going into safe mode for whatever reason. This might be something that you can rely on, not today, but maybe down the road. So let's just take a quick look. I will open. Not that one. pull that down. Okay, again, PowerShell script. And again, no input parameters, but there is an output parameter. Is it in safe mode? And again, we're gonna run a quick WMI query, okay, to Win32 computer system, select boot up state, okay, and then we're gonna output that. And then if that script out safe contains safe, then what we're gonna do is a global variable assignment in terms of the boot state, safe mode, and then, of course, output. That's it, nice and simple. Okay, so a quick two-liner in terms of PowerShell that is now used within some objects within Automation Manager to be able to get you the information that you need. And again, may not be something that you're interested in today, but I can guarantee you devices do go into safe mode periodically. So it might be something that you need to rely on later on, okay? Coming back here. Export custom properties to a CSV. Now, if you are an Incentral partner and you're not using custom properties, I would say you're gravely missing the point of the RMM in 2023. It is one of the most important features within the RMM product. The reason being is that there's a lot of other things that Incentral needs to be able to do other than just monitor and be able to do remote control. You need to be able to store information in Incentral or capture information, like some of the monitoring and automation that we're talking about today. We need to have things for down the road, right? We want to record things that just aren't in our face, but we can use for reporting purposes, okay? Now, as you can see here, we've got a script for it. Now, what I'm going to do is just pull it up really quick. Okay, I don't know why that's not working, but it's not even there. Okay, let me just check on one thing here. Bear with me. I did do a copy and paste here earlier, so maybe some things did not move over. I like to run things locally from my OneDrive as opposed to my company SharePoint. I just find like automation runs faster and everything else, so I might have botched something. There it is. I know why. This is a PowerShell script. That's why. It's not something that I'm going to be able to show you in an AMP. I'm not sure why that didn't copy over earlier though. Okay, so let's open this up in VS Code. Andre has a question. It says, is it possible to view historical values for custom properties? It really limits their usefulness otherwise. I would have to hear your use case about that because it may not be this year, but there is a number of things I want to do in terms of enhancements in custom properties, hopefully for next year, only because our roadmap is pretty much finalized for 2023. We've got a bunch of features. We got new APIs coming. REST APIs in Incentral. Oh my God, REST API. See, this is the roadmap. See the disclaimer at the very beginning? All makes sense now because I always talk about roadmap, even when I don't think I'm going to. But there's a lot of roadmap stuff that we have set for 2023. Enhancements around custom properties aren't one of them, but there are a number of enhancements I want to get off the ground at some point. So Andre, please use that email. Tell me what your use case is around versioning. Stored BitLocker keys are a use case for us. Maybe I just don't know enough about BitLocker keys to understand that they change, because I've never thought about that. But yeah, you want to look at historical values for sure. And it might be something that we should be able to record. The problem is that, I'll give you an example. We have a partner, the last time I was in their Incentral server, they had 24,000 devices. They had close to 900,000 entries in the database. This stuff takes up a lot of room, especially in terms of scale. Now, do I want it? Absolutely, but it has to be able to scale and everything else. So it's one of those things where when you do historical values, what happens if those values change, say 24 times a day, right? Every hour, right? There's a lot of historical information we have to be able to carry forward, and it just starts taking up much more room. So we have to be mindful of that kind of stuff as well. How to export automation policy task status information for all devices into a single notepad file rather than opening up a zip file for each device. Shred today, it is a digest, right? It is a digest of multiple devices into a single, zip, effectively. And that is really meant for specific troubleshooting purposes. But yes, I could understand you may want a very large, notepad file that has everything, for searchability or what have you. Michael, I'm unaware of the BitLocker key changing. If it does, the ticketing system should keep the old configs. Good to know, absolutely. How is that different than storing monitoring history? Because, well, it's no different, but what would 90 days of aggregate BitLocker give you? Probably not a whole lot. You may have to see something like, 6 months out, a year. So there's just a lot of other considerations when it comes to storing, because in N-central, I mean, from the ground up, and again, unless you've built monitoring platforms, there's a lot of considerations when it comes to storing data, right? So in Central, from the ground up in the database, there's effectively a drop policy after 90 days. That's why we have Report Manager, right? And that's why we're going to have the analytics platform in Snowflake. So again, being able to take all of that aggregate information and just throw it somewhere else. Now, to your point, why not just put it all into Report Manager? Well, we should, right? So I get the need and the use case around it. It's just today, it kind of is more kind of real time. All right, so let's pull this over. And again, this is a hefty one, as you can see, and I'm definitely not going through all of this because it is, well, let's see, 2056 lines of code, or let's say 2054 lines of code. What all you need here, and I'm just going to click play. Okay. So this is why it takes a little while when running from my SharePoint. I just noticed a difference, like my OneDrive, super fast. There we go. SharePoint, not so much. Let's go. What should happen here after it's done is that it should prompt me for the N-central server. Obviously, I'll use mine, which is, pardon me, nerdstraining.n-able.com. And then it's going to ask me for a JWT, which is a way, or better known as a JSON web token, which is an API account in N-central that allows it to broker the connection between each other. So again, once this is done, it will ask me run, but effectively being able to grab the information that I need from a custom property. And again, this particular one is for, if I go back, oh, there it is right there, it was sitting behind. So as you can see, all I need is training.n-able.com. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the API key that's sitting in, believe it or not, I actually store my API keys in Notepad++. I don't know why. You would think I would put them on my OneDrive, but I didn't. So I'm going to say not now because it wants to update. And as long as I didn't break my key, it'll connect to N-central. And then it's going to present me an option. Now there's 6 options. Now, for the benefit of people who aren't familiar with custom properties, there are 2 types of custom properties: device-based custom properties and org-based. Okay, so a device is what it is. These are custom properties that are centered around a device. Then you have other custom properties that are called org-based properties, or other people call them customer properties. So they're based on the tenancy in N-central: system, SO level, customer, site, so that you can embed properties at a customer level effectively. Okay. Now, when using this, you can download a single custom device property for one or more customers. Now, if I choose this, all I need to do is create a path. So I'll just create one really quick. Actually, I'll just type it in. I'll just go C, I'll go temp / backup / test bootcamp.csv. There we go. And then I'm going to use all customers, okay? And then I'll give it a property name. Now I'm going to come into N-central. Where is my N-central? There we go. I'm going to go into my custom properties. Are you? I'm under configuration, that's why. Custom properties. Now, I believe I use BitLocker as my example for almost everything, so I got to remember which one is my live one. I think it is this. So I'll just take that really quick, and I'll use this. Okay, I'll export, and it goes ahead and generates the array in the variable, and then goes ahead and generates the custom property and puts it in a CSV on my in my backup folder in temp. So if I come in here and I go into C, temp, backup, and then you can see I've got all my other ones here. So yeah, they're all my exports from CSVs and everything else. So that's the use case for this, is that you now have a way to export your custom properties en masse, very easy to use. It's a PowerShell script that gives you a GUI so that you can really kind of input the information the way you need to, and it gives you flexibility in terms of dropdowns. Okay, so again, custom device property for one or more customers. A customer level, I don't like calling them customer level because there's multiple tenancies in N-central, customer being one of them. So I like to call them org properties. So org level properties for one or more customers. Download custom device properties for one or more customers. Okay, the difference here is this is a single, this is all. Okay, download all customer level properties for one or more, I should say org level properties for one or more customers. And then what you can also do is import back a single device property for one or more customers, and then also import back a single customer level. So you can actually take information from a CSV and push it into N-central. Okay, pretty awesome. That's a really good way to be able to use this. Okay, Andre as well. Here an example. Device has an SSD replaced. Fresh OS is installed with N-central agent. New BitLocker key overwrites the old custom property, making it impossible to recover the data from the old SSD. Okay, that's fair enough. What I can tell you is in a combination of because you can use a base, in N-central, there's a baseline change in hardware. I forget what the monitoring is actually called, but there's a monitor default into N-central that if any of the hardware changes, that it will alert you. At that point, you may want to even script out, and like Michael, my friend Michael was saying, is that you might be able to even take that information and store it into N-central, like almost like an automatic way to update it dynamically. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. That was 2 use cases at once. So let me go back to here. Okay, set OneDrive files to on demand. Now I'm not going to pull this one up because it's fairly basic, but it's a way to ensure, and let me just go to my notes here on my other slide, bear with me. Okay, setting OneDrive files to on demand can be very advantageous. Enabling on-demand files allows you to save disk space on your local device. Instead of downloading and storing all of your OneDrive files on your computer, on-demand files are only downloaded when you need them. This feature is particularly beneficial if you have limited storage capacity on your device or if you're using multiple devices with smaller storage, okay? Now, again, not going to go through and do a use case on this, or at least within automation and PowerShell, because here is the script. It's really finely basic, but this might be something that, again, as an edge case within your customers, you know, if you've got 1,000 devices, maybe you don't, you know, this one doesn't matter to you, but this might be something that, Conrad, I can see your questions, so you definitely can ask questions. So hopefully that verifies it. But this might be something that, again, might pop up in the future. Okay. Click. Okay, disable inactive AD accounts. Let's look at this one. Okay, so if I go to Automation Manager, open. Here, there you are. Conrad, that's a great question, and you must have missed the first couple minutes that I explained. I'm the Incentral nerd, so I use Incentral for all of my demonstrations. Yeah, so you missed the first, okay, that's the first 5 minutes. So I said, and I can show you that within all of these scripts, I might be using Incentral as my way to show and tell, but all of these scripts work within Insight as well, okay? So they are on the cookbook, and they are available for Insight. I'm just using Incentral as my method to go through and show you how to upload them, or you know, how to add them as custom monitoring or what have you. But Automation Manager is identical between the two. So, well, maybe not custom properties. Custom properties are primarily for Incentral. My apologies, you're right. You got me on that one. Okay, so again, all we're gonna do is search AD account inactive, and based on a time span on users only, set AD user enable state false. And then what we're going to do, let me just, oh, I was going to play it. That would be silly. And then what we can do is use that to disable inactive AD accounts. Sorry, my apologies. For some reason in my head, I thought it was monitoring. We just want to use that as an actionable script to be able to disable inactive. Now, this one is important, okay? Because like I was talking about things like Office and older end-of-life versions of Windows, we all have to be very much mindful of security, okay? Even Incentral, for example, has to be very mindful of agent communication and TLS 1.2 and even 1.3. So a lot of your endpoints that are sitting in Incentral do not have the ability to communicate over TLS 1.2. And if you've ever struggled with getting agents installed on, you know, something like 2008 R2, you may realize that the agent security has been heightened over the past little while. In 2023, I think it happened in, actually happened in 22.8, I believe. We enforced some end-of-life cipher suites and made sure that we were using more modern day ciphers. Okay, so let's just look at this one really quickly. Older versions of TLS, such as TLS1, TLS 1.1, have known security vulnerabilities that can be exploited and can be exploited. You know, these aren't like proof of concepts. This is actually happening by attackers. By using TLS 1.2 or higher, you mitigate the risks associated with vulnerabilities and ensure that your communication is protected against unknown attack vectors. Also, more and more applications are moving away from TLS 1.0 and 1.1, so you need to ensure it's available on your endpoints. This is what this does, okay? So again, this is a PowerShell script, but this is the use case around being able to ensure that, hey, I've got monitoring on my endpoints. This is going to tell me if it's using 1.0, 1.1, or if it's compatible. So effectively, if it's using 1.0 or 1.1, it will fail, right? And this is a great way, especially on your servers. I mean, you probably already know that if you're running Windows, 7, depending on the service pack, it's probably not running TLS 1.2, right? So on your servers, you've got so many versions out there, and I know all of you probably have at least a 2008 or a 2012 or 2 server. You want to make sure that it's running, in the modern TLS method, okay? And here we go, we've got enabled TLS 1.2. So what we're going to do is back up the registry. We're going to create a key, and then we're going to create another key, right? Second, I just want to pull this one up really quickly. Let me set to default here. I don't know what happened there. Weird, I have not seen that before. Sorry guys, I'm just going to actually close this and reopen Automation Manager. There we go. Didn't want to move over the first time. I know what it is. This policy is literally so big. Okay, let me close this. This happens to me from time to time. We've got policies so big, they actually expand like 3 monitors. All right, so as you can see, we're pretty wide with this one. All right, so what you're gonna do is back up the registry, okay? And then allow you to choose your folder, okay? And what we're gonna do is create a key, create another key, create another key. So a lot of creating of keys, okay? Then we're going to get the Windows OS version and build. If the Windows OS version and build name contains 2008, then we're going to do a global variable assignment on 2008 or 12. If this OS name equals 2012, we're going to do the same. And as you can see here, because we have an if-else statement on this side, and we have an if-else statement on this side. So basically one for 2008, one for 2012. So I'll just move over to 2012. Okay, so set the registry value non-2008 and 2012. Okay, so we're going to set the registry values here using the necessary cipher suites, and they all have to be in the same order. So I would recommend not toying with any of this. It's very important to chain ciphers together in a very specific order. Then what we're going to do is get the HQLM value from each one of these, boom, and then go through and it'll just tell us success or fail, right? So again, one or more ciphers not set, and then TLS ciphers enabled successfully. Okay, and again, you have monitoring. So if you have any older equipment in Nsight or N-Central, this would be super important. Okay. Okay. Do you have an index of all the amps that you worked on during this session? Robert, awesome question. It's something I usually say at the very end. I can send you a list. In fact, I have not broken out all of the links, but what I'll do is I'll send you a screenshot of my scripts. And then what you can do is you're going to be able to find all of these on the cookbook. And again, I'll send you the link, success.n-able.com. Okay, yep, no problem. Roderick, script went by quickly, but looks like where you test if 2008 or 12, it says, ooh, let's look. It could be, I know Mark Andre created this, and he's like, works in like a mile a minute. So sometimes he'll have a typo, but hopefully it's in the name of something and not actually the, maybe we're looking like this. So I would say this is probably correct, but, and I know we've done extensive testing on this one, only because, you know, we've been doing this on my server and everything else. Oh, there, where? You know what? When I send it to you, send me the screenshot if you can actually find it, other than kind of holding up everybody. Please, if you see a problem with this, please let me know. This one's super important, and I want it to work for everybody. So Roderick sending it must have been a note or a comment. So anyways, long story short, if you see a problem with any of these amps, or you want to give me some feedback or anything, you know, you've got my email, please use it. I'm not always able to respond depending on my work week. I'm one guy and there's 25,000 partners and let's say hundreds of thousands of texts. So it's one of those things where sometimes I get inundated, you know, weekly. Except for Martin. Martin emails me about once every 2 weeks, but we used to work together, so I kind of expect it. Thanks, everybody. We're going to shut it down. Take care, and if you have any questions, reach out. Thank you. Bye-bye.